Truth, where illumined minds meet. Philosophic Insight, Final Illumination. Quest Series 5, Video Number 4. Quotes were taken from the Notebooks of Paul Brunton and The Wisdom of the Overself. Presented by the Paul Brunton Philosophic Foundation. Buddha certainly glorified the worth of compassion, but he also glorified the worth of insight. However, he never said that compassion could alone bring one to nirvana. Buddha recommended the first as a disciplinary practice for the attainment of the other. Why? Because personal feeling either blinds us to truth or distorts our mentality. Often we cannot see things as they really are, because we are warped by our egoistic prejudices and passions. If we can get away from the personal, we can get rid of these obstacles. Compassion thins the ego's strength and assists us to become properly equipped to achieve insight into truth. But love is not enough. Similarly, Jesus gave the masses the golden rule of doing unto one's neighbor as one would be done by. They needed to be dislodged from their strong selfishness. Hence, Jesus taught them that, "Whatsoever you sow, that shall you also reap." But he did not suggest that this was sufficient guidance to realize the kingdom of heaven. Philosophy respects the validity of karmic consequences, the getting back of what is given out, and also the need to begin curbing the ego, its desires and passions, as a preliminary to crushing it. There is solid ground for the excellent ethical counsel given to all humanity by Confucius and Buddha, Jesus and Socrates. Aspirants do not know what the ego is. Therefore, Jesus said, "If you want to find your true self, you have to deny yourselves," meaning deny the ego. But how can we carry on with our daily lives without the ego consciousness is a natural and common question. The first answer, and certainly the best one, is supplied by the personal experiences of those who have lived in the past without the ego consciousness, and of those who are doing it today. Their testimony to its actuality is worth more than the theoretical objections to its possibility. Think of the great or celebrated names which proffer such testimony, of Jesus and Buddha in Asia, of Eckhart and Boehme in Europe, and of Emerson in America. And there are other names which I know of people who lived in our own century but who lived obscurely, unknown to all but a tiny handful of seekers, whom my own line of destiny fortunately crossed and happily tangled with in the period of my wide research. The second answer to the question of this possibility is contained in the ordinary experience of awakening from a night's sleep. Just as we no longer need the dream ego to carry on our waking activities, so the illumined person no longer needs the waking ego to carry on his or her activities, because intuition and insight are fully developed. Insight, a faculty which is now merely latent in humanity, will transcend all others when developed. Where reason fails miserably to think the Overself because it cannot, it may, however, become the Overself by humbly merging into it. The attempt to know the hidden observer must alter into an attempt to become it. The distinction between the observer and the observed must disappear. The object of thought must dissolve into primal thought itself. Knowledge and being must unite with each other. the I and its transcendental father, the ego, and its eternal witness must somehow wed. Then only will there be an inward knowledge by self-identity of the lower with the higher. Then only can the I become aware of the sacred presence within its innermost shrine. Such is the path to which philosophy's extended hand beckons us. The term insight is used for this faculty primarily because one who possesses it can see what is, not merely what appears, and can see into the inner reality behind the world appearance, which our image-making faculty has superimposed upon it, can clearly feel the eternal life essence within all the transient planetary forms. Sight is a function of the body. Understanding is a function of the intelligence, but insight is a function of the Overself. In the ancient hidden teaching, the use of this faculty was originally called opening the eye of transcendental knowledge. Reason works by grasping one thought after another, whereas insight pierces at once like a sharp arrow through the thick hide of appearance. If you could look at your own life not only in an impersonal way, but also with philosophic insight, you would perceive the meaningfulness of the happenings in your life, of the relations with other persons, and even of the larger backgrounds themselves. All served a higher purpose or fulfilled a higher service, leading you from a half-animal to a truly human being, or obeyed a moral law, such as karma. If you are to rise to the philosophic insight, you will find it through intellect and feeling, intelligence and intuition, mystical experience and deep penetration into consciousness, your own and the world's. Insight is the faculty whereby we can penetrate through the terrestrial forms amid which we habitually dwell, into the infinite and ineffable reality behind and beyond them. It is incorrect to use the term intuition for the apprehension of what is beyond its own range. It deals only with ephemeral ideas. Nevertheless, the unfoldment of intuition constitutes a valuable preliminary accomplishment, which renders easier and quicker the unfoldment of insight. A mystic experience is something that simply comes and goes, whereas philosophic insight, once established in us, cannot possibly leave. One understands the truth and cannot lose this understanding, any more than an adult can lose his adulthood and become an infant. Whoever believes that the awakening of insight is something which affects the intelligence only, believes wrongly. For with it there is a simultaneous awakening of the finest qualities of the heart. Indeed, in this transcendent sphere to which the philosopher penetrates, thought and feeling are inseparable. Compassion is released automatically along with insight itself. One and the same mind is the inner nature of all. This is why you can then understand the puzzling and paradoxical description of the Overself, that it is distinct from, but not separate from, the Overself of another. For you will be able to feel completely with and for others, and yet retain your own personality to the full. This is why you can no longer be a passive onlooker at the struggles of others. You will then serve for the pure love of service, rather than for the love of personal profit. Nevertheless, let it not be thought that your compassion will waste itself in a merely effervescent sentimentality or a crime-condoning flabbiness. Its successful application will be guaranteed by the fact that it will be guided by rational intelligence. Such supreme sagacity as this is, such a mature and complete penetration into the fundamental character of all existence, is really nothing more than the natural human intelligence brought to its best pitch. Quotes were taken from the notebooks of Paul Brunton and The Wisdom of the Overself. Paul Brunton, 1898 to 1981, a best-selling British author of a dozen books, spent much of his early life researching the original sacred teachings of Western and Eastern spiritual traditions. He traveled the world to discover and communicate with Christian, Kabbalistic, Vedantic, Buddhist, Taoist, indigenous, and Sufi masters. Blending the richness of his own spiritual experience and inquiry with these ancient and contemporary teachings, he developed a philosophy and path of practice that suits life in the 21st century, one that expresses the greatest wisdom and love available to humankind. Regardless of how it is named, we each have a divine soul, an overself or higher self, that is with us here and now, waiting to be realized. Paul Brunton's writings are a source of deep spiritual guidance for all those interested in living a divinely inspired life.